Hey there. Welcome to another episode of Understanding Depression, your space for learning, reflecting, and growing. If you're new here, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this podcast with anyone who might need a little extra understanding today. Your support really helps us reach more people who might be quietly struggling. Today's topic is one that's both fascinating and incredibly important. We're diving into something that often gets overlooked in conversations about mental health, the anatomy of the brain and how it relates to depression. In this episode, we'll explore the chemistry, the structure, and the complex interplay inside our brains that can influence how we feel, think, and behave. Now, this isn't going to be a dry science class. Think of it more like a mindful walk through your inner universe. I'll do my best to explain everything in a clear, down-to-earth way. No neuroscience degree needed. And please, I invite you to stay with me all the way through. Whether you're someone who lives with depression, someone supporting a loved one, or just curious about mental health, there's something valuable here for you. Let's be present, gentle with ourselves, and open to learning. So, what actually happens inside our brains when depression takes hold? And why do certain parts of the brain play such a big role in how we experience emotions? That's exactly what we're unpacking today. Let's start with a simple truth. Depression is not just in your head, but yes, it does involve your brain. And understanding how the brain works during depression can help reduce stigma, open up more compassion, and even guide more effective treatment. Coming up next, we'll meet the key players in the brain's emotional network, like the amygdala, hippocampus, and prefrontal cortex. Each one has its own role in the emotional orchestra. Curious? Great. Let's keep going. Alright, let's get to know the main regions of the brain involved in depression. Think of them like characters in a story, each with its own function, but they all work together to shape how we feel and react to the world. First up, we have the amygdala. This almond-shaped structure is like the brain's emotional alarm system. It helps process emotions, especially fear and sadness. In people with depression, the amygdala can become overactive, making it harder to regulate emotional responses. This can lead to feeling overwhelmed, anxious, or stuck in negative thought patterns. Next is the hippocampus, which is critical for forming memories and connecting emotions to those memories. Studies have shown that people with chronic depression often have a smaller hippocampus. Why? Long-term stress and elevated cortisol levels, the brain's main stress hormone, can actually shrink this area over time, and that can affect memory, emotional stability, and learning. Then there's the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain right behind your forehead. This region is responsible for decision-making, concentration, and emotional regulation. In depression, activity in the prefrontal cortex often decreases. That's one reason why someone with depression might struggle to make choices, focus on tasks, or feel motivated. These three regions, the amygdala, hippocampus, and prefrontal cortex, communicate constantly, and when that communication is disrupted, emotional balance is affected. Still with me? Awesome. This might sound complex, but we're just getting started. Stick around, because in the next part, we'll look at the brain's chemical messengers, or neurotransmitters, and how their imbalances can lead to symptoms of depression. Take a moment, breathe in deeply, and let's continue learning with curiosity and care. Now that we've met the key brain regions, let's talk about something just as crucial: neurotransmitters. These are the chemical messengers that allow brain cells to communicate with each other. When it comes to depression, three neurotransmitters often take center stage: serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. Let's start with serotonin. Often referred to as the feel-good chemical, serotonin plays a major role in mood, sleep, appetite, and even pain perception. Low levels of serotonin are commonly linked to feelings of sadness, anxiety, and irritability. That's why many antidepressants, like SSRIs, work by increasing serotonin availability in the brain. Next, we have dopamine, which is closely tied to the brain's reward system. Dopamine helps us feel pleasure and motivation. When dopamine levels drop, activities that once felt enjoyable, like hobbies, socializing, or even eating, may no longer bring joy. This is what we call anhedonia, one of the hallmark symptoms of depression. And then there's norepinephrine, which is involved in our stress response, attention, and energy levels. When norepinephrine is out of balance, it can contribute to fatigue, difficulty concentrating, and a sense of inner restlessness. It's important to understand that neurotransmitters don't work in isolation. They interact with each other and with different parts of the brain. An imbalance in one can affect the whole system, sort of like a domino effect. And this is one of the reasons why depression can look different from person to person. Also worth noting, brain chemistry isn't the only cause of depression. It's just one piece of a much bigger puzzle that includes genetics, environment, trauma, lifestyle, and more. Feeling curieux? Great! In the next section, we'll explore how stress affects brain chemistry and how long-term stress might even reshape your brain. This is where it gets really interesting, so stay with me. Welcome back. Let's talk about a powerful influence on brain chemistry and structure: stress. Stress, in small doses, isn't necessarily bad. It can help us stay alert, meet deadlines, or respond to danger. But when stress becomes chronic, especially emotional stress, it can seriously affect the brain's function and structure. At the heart of this process is a hormone called cortisol. Sometimes called the stress hormone, cortisol is released by the adrenal glands during the body's fight or flight response. That's useful if you're escaping danger, but when cortisol levels stay high for long periods, it can become toxic to the brain. Let's go back to the hippocampus for a moment. This area is particularly sensitive to cortisol. Chronic stress can cause the hippocampus to shrink, impairing memory and emotional regulation. The prefrontal cortex can also lose volume under prolonged stress, making it harder to think clearly or make decisions. Meanwhile, the amygdala, our emotional alarm system, can actually grow larger and become more reactive. This makes us more sensitive to negative stimuli and more prone to anxiety, irritability, or emotional overwhelm. This neurological remodeling doesn't happen overnight, but over time, chronic stress reshapes the brain in ways that increase vulnerability to depression and anxiety. That's why managing stress isn't just about feeling better, it's about protecting your brain's long-term health. Stay with me? You're doing amazing. Understanding how stress works in the brain can empower us to make better choices, seek support, and treat ourselves with more compassion. Up next, we'll explore how genetics and brain chemistry interact, why some people might be more predisposed to depression, and how modern science is helping us understand these invisible influences. Stick around. It gets even more fascinating from here. Let's continue our journey into the brain, and now we're diving into the world of genetics. Have you ever wondered why some people seem more vulnerable to depression than others, even when they've gone through similar life experiences? Well, a big part of the answer lies in our genes. Research shows that depression can run in families, and certain genetic traits may increase a person's risk of developing the condition. But here's something important to remember. Genes are not destiny. Having a genetic predisposition doesn't mean you'll definitely experience depression, but it might mean your brain responds to stress or trauma differently. Here's how it connects with brain chemistry. Some people inherit differences in how their brain processes neurotransmitters like serotonin or dopamine. These subtle variations can influence how effectively those chemicals are produced, transported, or received by brain cells. Think of it like tiny differences in how your brain's messaging system is wired. Scientists have even identified certain gene variants, such as those affecting the serotonin transporter gene, called 5-HTTLPR, that appear to play a role in mood regulation. People with certain versions of this gene may be more sensitive to stressful life events and more likely to develop symptoms of depression in response. But remember, genes don't act alone. They interact with our environment, lifestyle, early life experiences, and even our beliefs about ourselves. This dynamic is known as epigenetics, the study of how environment and behavior can influence the way our genes are expressed. In other words, even if you carry certain risk genes, your choices, habits, and support system can still shape your mental health journey. Still feeling curious? I hope so. Up next, we're going to look at how all this science translates into real-world treatments, from medication to therapy and beyond. Because understanding the brain isn't just about knowledge, it's about healing. You're doing great. Stay with me. So now that we've explored the brain's structure, chemistry, and even genetics, how does all of this help us in the real world? Let's talk about treatment. Because here's the good news. The more we understand the brain, the better we get at treating depression in a targeted, effective way. Let's start with antidepressant medication. Different types of antidepressants work by adjusting levels of neurotransmitters in the brain. For example, SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, like fluoxetine or sertraline, help increase the amount of serotonin available in the brain. SNRIs, serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors, work on both serotonin and norepinephrine. NDRIs, norepinephrine dopamine reuptake inhibitors, can support energy and motivation by influencing dopamine and norepinephrine. These medications don't cure depression, but they can create the biological stability that allows therapy, lifestyle changes, and healing to take root. Speaking of therapy, approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, have been shown to physically change brain activity over time. Imaging studies show that after consistent therapy, areas like the prefrontal cortex may become more active, helping people think more clearly and regulate emotions more effectively. Other emerging treatments like TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation, or ketamine-assisted therapy are also showing promise for treatment-resistant depression, offering new hope for people who haven't responded to traditional options. And let's not underestimate the power of lifestyle. Sleep, exercise, nutrition, mindfulness, all of these habits impact brain chemistry, inflammation, and mood. A 30-minute walk might not replace therapy, but it can boost dopamine and reduce cortisol. Every little bit counts. You see, healing isn't one size fits all. It's a process, and sometimes it takes trial and error. But the science of the brain is giving us more tools, more insight, and more compassion than ever before. In our final section coming up next, we'll wrap everything together, and I'll leave you with some empowering takeaways you can carry with you. Stay with me just a little longer, and let's close this journey mindfully together. Other emerging treatments like TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation, or ketamine-assisted therapy are also showing promise for treatment-resistant depression, offering new hope for people who haven't responded to traditional options. And let's not underestimate the power of lifestyle. Sleep, exercise, nutrition, mindfulness, all of these habits impact brain chemistry, inflammation, and mood. A 30-minute walk might not replace therapy, but it can boost dopamine and reduce cortisol. Every little bit counts. You see, healing isn't one size fits all. It's a process, and sometimes it takes trial and error. But the science of the brain is giving us more tools, more insight, and more compassion than ever before. In our final section coming up next, we'll wrap everything together, and I'll leave you with some empowering takeaways you can carry with you. Stay with me just a little longer, and let's close this journey mindfully together. You made it to the final part. Thank you for staying with me. That, in itself, is an act of mindfulness. And I hope you're walking away from this episode with a deeper understanding of just how powerful and how delicate our brains really are. We've learned that depression isn't just feeling sad or being weak. It's a real, measurable condition rooted in brain chemistry, structure, and experience. The amygdala, hippocampus, and prefrontal cortex each play a role. Neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine act as messengers. Stress hormones like cortisol can reshape the brain. And yes, genes can tip the scale, but they don't write the whole story. What this tells us is powerful. Depression is not your fault. It's not a moral failure or a personality flaw. It's a complex condition that science is only beginning to fully understand. And most importantly, it's treatable. With the right mix of support, self-care, medical treatment, and community, healing is possible. So whether you're currently facing depression, supporting someone you care about, or just learning with an open heart, let this be your reminder: you are not alone. And your brain, with all its complexity and challenge, is also capable of amazing growth and resilience. Before we close, I'd love to invite you once again. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share this episode if it resonated with you. It helps us grow this community and reach others who may need to hear these words today. Your presence here matters more than you know. Take a deep breath. Place a hand on your heart if you'd like. And just for a moment, thank yourself for showing up. Until next time, keep learning, keep feeling, and keep taking care. You're doing better than you think.